for close passage, it's best for us to quickly skim through the context to figure out what's the main message, right? It'll help us identify associated words. Okay, so let's quickly look at it. So quickly reading the context before you guys start giving your answers. We'll look for collocations as well. But let's understand what the theme of the passage is. There is a school of thought that some kinds of complex governance policy-making functions should be insulated from the tumult of partisan politics by dash them to technocrats. Giving into the seductive appeal of this argument to the dash of breaking the line of accountability of policymakers to the people altogether would undermine democracy and run the risk of these technocratic bodies being captured by dash interests instead of practicing fidelity to professionalism. The proposal of the RBI's Urjit Patel committee to entrust monetary policy dash to a committee of wise men, in which even the RBI governor would have just one vote and can be overruled dash to the school. This is a bad idea that dash firmly be rejected. At present, the RBI has reasonable autonomy but holds consultations with the government and has begun to testify before parliamentary committees. Both are needed to make monetary policy and regulation of the banking system dash to the people. A committee does advise the RBI governor on policy rates, but he makes the final call. One person taking the final call seems less democratic than a committee voting to make that call only dash that one person is taken out of his institutional context. The RBI governor is not some lone ranger, but the RBI's link with the elected government of the country. Simultaneous accountability of the RBI governor to a committee of parliament would dash that the government does not make dash demands on the central bank as well. So basically the entire context is talking about certain policy making decisions that need to be implemented, and they are looking at, is it best to kind of assign it to one particular group of people? Should the governor be the sole dictator, or should he be in consultation with a group of, members who can give the right advice and make sure that the laws or whatever is not misused, right? Or selfishly implemented. Now, so let's quickly look at the blanks. Okay, so the first one. So, couple of things. For some of you, you might, what do I say? You might not, there might be some words that you're not able to follow, all of that. So let's quickly address that, before we get started. So school of thought, this is an expression, right? School of thought means what? I'm sure all of you know. When I say this is the school of thought, which means this is a particular way of thinking, right? Like a set of opinion or ideas that a particular group of people share about some matter, right? So it's basically a particular way of thinking shared by a group of people. So this is generally the school of thought. What is some kinds of complex governance policy making functions should be insulated from the tumult of partisan policies. Insulated means, what is insulated? To be set aside, to be separated, like in an isolated position, right? To be insulated from the tumult. Tumult means disturbance, right? Some sort of an agitation. So tumult of partisan politics by dash them to technocrats. Options: allocating, entrusting, imposing, conferring, holding. So quickly let's look at our options and eliminate wrong answer options. Allocate means what? To designate, to distribute, not the right word in the context. We're talking about this particular responsibility to be handed out to who? Technocrats, the technical experts, the technologists. So obviously it cannot be allocate. Entrusting, yes, because we're talking about this particular responsibility. That's the word, right? When you entrust something to somebody, which means you're making them accountable, you're making them responsible for that. Imposing. Keep in mind, to the dash of breaking policies by dash them to technocrats. In terms of collocation also, you entrust something to someone, right? When if I have to use impose is not the right word again, but impose follows with on. You impose something on somebody, right? Keep in mind, to is there, preposition. That's your collocation. Entrust to. Conferring means like you're consulting. It has different meanings in different contexts. One other meaning is you're bestowing some sort of a medal or honor for somebody. Again, not the right word in the context. Holding again is not the right word, right? Partisan policies by holding them to technocrats, illogical. Yeah, you can quickly eliminate option E. The answer is B. You entrust this particular responsibility to the technocrats. Moving on. Giving into the seductive appeal of this argument to the dash of, so giving into the seductive appeal of this argument, seductive appeal, meaning it's though it's very tempting, you know, it's tempting to such an extent. Again, our options are ambit, stretch, term, extent, length. Impose means you're forcing something on someone, right? As a collocation, yes. But please keep in mind, these are popular collocations, which means that word is usually used with the preposition on. Doesn't mean that impose will only follow with the preposition on, right? So you shouldn't take it literally that. Depending on the context, it will change. So every time you learn a word, you will learn it in context. But if you look up impose as such, usually it will be followed by the preposition on. Okay, anyway, okay, I'm going to take, I know most of you have given me all of the options, but let's quickly look at it for the benefit of the rest of them who are probably struggling with each blank. So to the ambit means scope or sphere, not the right word here. To the stretch of breaking the line, no. The collocation is to the extent of doing something, right? So you're giving into something to the extent of something else. Option D, not to the term of breaking, not to the length of breaking. 2D, to the extent of breaking. The line of accountability of policymakers to the people altogether would undermine democracy and run the risk of these technocratic bodies being captured by dash interests. Ambit will differ in context. Usually, when you say ambit, you're talking about some sort of an influence or a limit or a boundary or a scope. So when you're confused between two words, right, the best thing to do is look at the context and see which would be a better fit. Giving into the seductive appeal of this argument here they're not talking about any sort of a limit or boundary or scope. They're just saying if we give into this appeal, right, it's very tempting. It's tempting to the extent of what will happen. The outcome is given, breaking the line of accountability of policymakers to the people altogether. So that's why extent would be a more appropriate word, right? Third one, interests. So here, just applying word class, right? This is my noun. I need an adjective. And there's a collocation also. And if you look at all the options, all of them are adjectives. Vested, endowed, simple, compound, any. But here we're talking about the risk is that they will do what they want, right? So the right collocation is vested interests. That's your adjective plus noun collocation. Vested interests. Vested means, for those of you who don't know, vested means something with no room for chance or uncertainty, right? Something that is fixed, something that is absolute. So instead of practicing fidelity to professionalism. So what they're saying is, if we give them this, hand over the responsibility to technocrats, there is a risk of these technocratic bodies being captured by vested interests, by their own selfish interests, not giving room for anything else, instead of practicing fidelity to professionalism. Now, moving on. The proposal of the RBI's Urjit Patel committee to entrust monetary policy dash to a committee. So this particular, I need a word that brings in the meaning of if this is what the situation is going to be, right? It's referring to this particular environment in which this is the situation, this is the set situation. So look at our options for fourth blank. Arranging, initiating, setting, building, beginning. What should be the right answer? Monetary policy, not arranging, not initiating, setting. This is the background. Monetary policy, setting, not building, not beginning. Both are D and E are illogical. Setting to a committee of wise men in which even the RBI governor would have just one vote and can be overruled dash to the school. So this is again it's referring back to the school of thought. So this whole sentence is talking about this is the possibility that can happen. The proposal of the RBI Urjit Patel committee to entrust monetary policy setting to a committee of wise men in which even the RBI governor would have just one vote and can be overruled. Options for 5, concerned, agrees, associates, correlates, belongs. The answer is, for fifth one, think about it. Pay attention to the preposition to. See, this is what can happen if we do this. So this particular thing belongs. It belongs to this school of thought, not D, not correlates. When we do this, when we hand over this responsibility to technocrats, what will happen is even the RBI governor would have just one vote and can be overruled. So this is the possibility. And this idea belongs to this school. That makes sense. This is a bad idea. So they're saying this is a bad idea that dash firmly be rejected. Our options for sixth, this is an easy one, sixth one. Needs firmly be rejected, must firmly be rejected, had firmly be rejected, ought to is missing, requires firmly be rejected. So out of the options that we have for the sixth blank, has to be for the sixth one. This is a bad idea that must firmly be rejected. Yes. This is a bad idea that not had, has to be will come if I have to use C. This is a bad idea that needs to be again. To be is missing for A and C. And anyway, A is in had, not has. Ought to is missing in D. This is a bad idea. That requires again is not a very effective word. Must. They are strongly objecting, firmly rejected, must. It has to be. Moving on, 7, 8, 9, 10. So let's quickly look at it. At present, the RBI has reasonable autonomy but holds consultations with the government and has begun to testify before parliamentary committees. Both are needed to make monetary policy and regulation of the banking system dash to the people. Options: adapted, suited, responsible, accountable, attributed. What should be the answer? I want you to understand the context, okay? At present, the RBI has reasonable autonomy, though autonomy means taking decisions on its own, like absolute authority, right? But it holds consultation with the government and has begun to testify before parliamentary committees. So both are needed to make monetary policy and regulation of the banking system dash to the people. In the context we're looking at, if something goes wrong, these two bodies should be able to explain themselves to the people, right? They are answerable to the people. So I need a word that brings in that meaning. Accountable is the answer, okay? Accountable to the people. See, these guys set the rules, right? It does not have to suit the people. But if something goes wrong, they should be in a position to explain it to the people. They should be able to, they are answerable to the people. Are you following? The government does not make rules that are suitable to the people, right? If that's the case, I think we won't function properly. Are you following? So if something has been set as this is a policy, this is something that you need to follow, this is the law, this is what is required, they don't make it suitable for the people. Okay, but they should be in a position to answer to the people when things don't go accordingly. Are you following? Accountable is the right answer. Let's move on. A committee does advise the RBI governor on policy rates, but he makes the final call. One person taking the final call seems less democratic than a committee voting to make that call only dash that one person is taken out of his institutional context. Options: while, whereas, whether, where, when. What's the answer? This is an easy one because they're talking about a particular instance and they're saying one person takes the final call and that seems less democratic than a committee voting to make that call only when that one person is taken. So only at that time that this happens, right? So time reference is here. So in that instance, when, blah, blah, blah. The RBI governor is not some lone ranger, but the RBI's link with the elected government of the country. Last two blanks. Simultaneous accountability of the RBI governor to a committee of parliament would dash that the government does not make dash demands on the central bank as well. So please understand this context again quickly. So if the RBI governor is accountable to a committee of parliament, things will happen accordingly, right? So options for 9, ensure, think, protect, pursue, follow. Obviously the answer is ensure. Ensure that the government does not make what demands. Again, this is a noun, I need an adjective, right? All my options are adjective for 10 blank. Fervent, obsolete, arbitrary, despotic and passionate. So we'll have to choose the correct adjective to complement demands here. So what are our options for those of you who don't know the meaning of these words? Fervent means full of zeal, zealous, right? Obsolete means no longer in use, right? Outdated. Arbitrary means unnecessary. We'll have to look at, the right options, right? So being either impulsive, right? Leaving it to whim and chance, as you fancy, right? These are all the meanings of basically something that is not arbitrary means unnecessary. Okay? Not applying reason or principle. Despotic means, despotic is, what can I say? Almost like a tyrant, right? Absolute authority. Now, what can be our option? Passionate, we know, full of passion. So the 10th blank, Simultaneous accountability of the RBI governor to a committee of parliament would ensure that the government does not make unnecessary demands, impulsive demands, demands that are just born out of chance or whim, right? So the answer has to be C and not anything else. So a good knowledge on words, right? If you're not familiar with the meanings of these adjectives, you're going to find it difficult to arrive at the answer. So who got all 10 blanks correct? Right? See, if you ask me, it's not a very difficult passage, right? You just have to apply a little bit of collocations and you just have to look at figuring out what the answer is in terms of the meaning that the context is giving. So for some of you, I'm sure, there would have been some words which is blocking your overall comprehension. Words like tumult and school of thought and other words that we saw earlier, right?